Hello, this is Justin Williams with the Wolfpacker podcast. I'm joined today, as always, by former Wolfpacker and current Canadian Football League defensive end Mike Rose for our Postgame Reflections podcast after NC State's wild 15-14 victory Saturday night in Carter Finley Stadium over the number 21 ranked Liberty Flames, who were undefeated entering the matchup. NC State spoils the perfect season for the Flames and Coach Hugh Freeze over there with a 15-14 win last night. We're going to break it all down for you here in this podcast. But before we get too far along in this episode, I want to talk about the special deal that we have going on at the wolfpacker.com right now for just $75. That's 25% off for 1 year of premium subscription to the wolfpacker.com. $75, you get 1 full year of premium membership, premium subscription. That unlocks all of our premium content, news, and analysis of everything NC State athletics. Men's basketball is a week away. We're now in the thick of football season, and we're going to be having a lot to break down here over the next couple weeks into bowl season. NC State is now bowl eligible, so please be sure to take advantage of this code. And I haven't mentioned the best part of this deal. You sign up for a free year, you get a free $75 digital gift code to Adidas gear. So you can get NC State gear. You can do a little bit of holiday shopping for loved ones. We got the holidays coming up. So be sure to take advantage of this deal. You basically get 1 year of membership to our site for free. Plus you get a little bit of holiday shopping done. You can check that off your list. So use code Adidas75. That's code Adidas75 at thewolfpacker.com. You act quickly because this deal is not going to last forever. So head over to the site right now. Use that promo code Adidas75. Mike, man, it was a long night last night. That might have been the longest game NC State's played this year. And credit to Coach Hugh Freeze for having the game plan of really, shortening that game up. That was clearly the goal of the Liberty Flames last night. But NC State ends up winning the time of possession battle for the first time in, I think 4 or 5 games. I mean, I don't think they've won many games in time of possession this year. In 2020, but they win the time of possession battle slightly, 30 minutes and 18 seconds to 29-42 for Liberty. It was just enough. NC State was able to outrush Liberty. NC State outgains them 321 to 279 total on offense. So let's start with I just want your candid reaction. Could you ever imagine, is it the most 2020 thing possible for us to be sitting here today, Sunday morning, NC State beats Liberty by 1 point at home in a close one, in a game that, NC State lived up to its cardiac pack reputation, if you will. Mm-hmm. Would you ever think that this would be the game where NC State fans are leaving? Wow, we're really happy to have that one. I think it might have been the win of the year, Mike. That Liberty team was good.
They were very good. They're very well coached. And I think NC State out-athleted this team because they were bigger, stronger, faster. But I'm going to say it. I think Liberty was the better coach team. They were the better disciplined team. And I think they dropped the ball. I think NC State capitalized on some great coaching points, where you get them on that safety, which changed the game. The safety changed the game. The little Bailey Hockman punt thing, that changed the entire game. It flipped the field, and it was probably one of the best coaching calls of this year, hands down. But I think for the most part, Liberty was being very effective. They were being efficient, and they kept it within their game. It was their game plan the entire time. NC State couldn't really get anything going, and Liberty was kind of dictating what was happening until basically the end of the third.
Correct me if I'm wrong here, but I don't think at all what you're saying is to discount the job that Dave Doran has done this season. I mean, you're sitting here at 6-3, 2 games left on your schedule where NC State's likely going to be at least a touchdown favorite. Going up to the Carrier Dome to play Syracuse, who's absolutely struggling this year. NC State's probably going to be a 2-touchdown favorite at least against the Orange, and then hosting Georgia Tech to finish out the season on December 5th. Georgia Tech, I think, only has 2 wins this season. So it's very, very possible that we're going to be sitting here 2 weeks from today. NC State might finish this season 8-3, and that is a testament to Coach Dave Doran.
Yeah, that's a good bowl game. No, I'm giving a shout out to Hugh Freeze, who let's to be fair, as ignorant as I am, I did not know Liberty was Div 1. I did not know that. I thought they were Division 1 AA. I'll take that hit. But the fact still remains that I thought they were Liberty. I didn't care what their record was, and I didn't see them as a potential threat.
Well, in fairness to you, Mike, they are a new FBS program. I think it happened. I think they made the switch in the last 10 years, maybe 15 at the most. But now, I mean, this program has surfaced on the map. I mean, they were entering this game, they were top 20 in almost every statistic among FBS teams. They were top 20 total offense, top 20 total defense. I mean, they were a complete whole team. Now, they're not getting the same athletes that NC State's able to get as an ACC program, but they've hustled in the transfer market. Malik Willis, I mean, he was a transfer from Auburn. That was a high level recruit that they were able to get, and I mean, he's a Power 5 caliber player, no doubt about it. But NC State was able to figure out a way to stop him last night. Entering the game, Malik Willis, Liberty's quarterback, I think he was averaging about 240 passing yards per game, over 100 rushing yards per game. He had thrown 15 passing touchdowns, just one interception. And I think he had 9 touchdowns rushing. I think he was tied for first among FBS quarterbacks with the most rushing touchdowns this year. So he was, I mean, we're talking about a national level type of talent there. And NC State shuts him down. He goes 13 for 32 last night, 172 yards, had his 2 touchdowns, but 3 interceptions, all of which were at the expense of NC State defenders, underclassmen who were getting their first career picks. Jakeen Harris got his in the first half, which was almost negated by a Tanner Engel targeting call. It would have been his second interception this season that would have been negated by a targeting call. But luckily for him, Tanner Engel does get the targeting call. He's ejected from the game. That was a big moment, but it happened after the play. So Jakeen Harris's interception counted. And then you get Aiden White, the true freshman, making a huge play, picking off Willis in Liberty territory, I think at the 25-yard line, which ends up setting NC State's second half touchdown, which obviously made a huge difference in this game. And then drawing a blank on the third guy. I'll come back to him, not to discount him at all. But with that said, the turnovers, I think, there were 5 defensive plays in this game. You mentioned the safety. I agree with you. I think that was the momentum changer in the second half. And then, of course, you have to mention Vi Jones's blocked field goal at the end of the game. I mean, Liberty had an opportunity to take the lead there. And, I mean, I'm going to be honest with you, Mike. I'm watching that game. Liberty's driving down the field with less than 2 minutes to go around midfield. I'm thinking, oh, no. I know exactly what's about to happen. Hugh Freeze has coached this game up exactly how he wants it. He wanted to shorten the game. He was going to drain that clock out, and he was going to give his Liberty Flames a chance to make a game-winning field goal with no time left. NC State made the stops necessary to force that field goal with still a minute and a half to go. So even if it went in, NC State had a chance to come back and put some points on the board to win the game. But the field goal block did it all. That clinched it. NC State was able to run out the clock and solidify the win. So, I mean, I don't know about you, but I think you have to credit this win to just the big plays on defense and special teams. And multiple guys stepped up to make that happen.
No, you're definitely right. I will shout out the run game, though. I think the run game was doing their thing. The O-linemen had a good day in the run, not the sexiest day in pass protection. I will say Liberty's defenders did get after Hockman a good bit. Actually, I saw him all over him at one point. But I will say in the run game, those O-linemen, Bam Knight, Person, those guys were really doing well, and Tim Beck's putting them in position to get to the edge, and he switched up a few run plays. I really like the sweep that he did for the touchdown. I really like that. So I definitely think that Tim Beck's in his bag, man. If he could just keep evolving this offense, because, I mean, Liberty's defense played well. Like, I'm not going to discount it. You give up 15 points, you played well. I just think that, when you have a Bam Knight, you got athletes, you can squeak by in some types of situations. There are some things I would have liked to see, but I'll let you tell them what I wanted to see.
Well, okay, we'll get into the offense here. We'll break down the offense, we'll break down the defense, and then we'll eventually give out our game balls. And shout out to Isaac Duffy. He was the third guy that got that final interception and came up big in the place of Tanner Engel at safety there. So ends up getting his first career interception. Shout out to him, redshirt sophomore, former walk-on. So big nights for this NC State secondary. And it's great to see it come against a guy in Willis who only had one interception through 7 games this season. So he was not a turnover prone guy. Just, it was a matter of the defensive secondary just stepping up and making big plays. I think you raise a really, really good point with the run game. On offense, NC State was struggling to move the ball. It wasn't Bailey Hockman's night. He had 2 career performances over the past 2 games. And, you thought, okay, well, maybe this is the new Bailey Hockman. Maybe now that he's kind of gotten the keys and after that bye week, they're making the play calls around him. Maybe this is more of along the lines of what we should expect from Bailey Hockman. I think, we understand now that Hockman has the potential to have those great nights and has the potential to lead NC State to ranked victories, which now, he can still say he's done that. Even with the win last night, even though he didn't have his, career game per se. But, sometimes that bad Bailey Hockman's still going to come out, and that's okay. That's not, he's not the guy that you were expecting to come in and be a 250-yard guy, a 65% completion guy, a multiple touchdown game guy, game in, game out. So, credit to Liberty's defense for making the right calls and stepping up. I mean, those defensive backs, as you mentioned before we started the show, they were undersized, but they were quick.
They were working.
The receivers really had a tough time separating from those guys. And, and Hockman just didn't have those wide open opportunities as much as he had over the past 2 games. But again, credit to Liberty's defense. I mean, this is an NC State offense that over the past 2 games, we're talking about 41 points against Miami. No slouch of a defense there. They've got some studs on that defensive front with the Hurricanes, a top 15 team in Miami. And then, NC State was able to handle Florida State pretty easily on the offensive side of the ball, puts up 38 points in the win against the Seminoles. So 15 points to hold this NC State offense to 15 points. Credit to Liberty, but they had no answer for Bam Knight. I mean, in my opinion, I think when the offense was starting to struggle in the third quarter, it was partially due to NC State abandoning the run a little bit. I would have liked to see Bam get more carries in that third quarter. I didn't think he had as many opportunities as maybe he should have in the third quarter, but they went back to him in the fourth. He gets it done. 2 touchdowns for him. He scores both of NC State's touchdowns last night, finishes the game with 96 yards, averaging 6.9 yards per carry. And early in the first half, not only was the run game going, but NC State's offensive line just looked like it was manhandling Liberty's defensive front. I mean, it looked like a Power 5 team was going against an out of 5 opponent there. That you could see the athleticism and the talent gap there. But credit to Liberty, they made the adjustments at halftime, stacked the box a little bit, and definitely put that offensive line to the test. But a great night for Bam Knight and Ricky Person with another good night too. 14 carries for 83 yards. He averages 5.9 yards per carry. Those 2 combined had about 179 yards rushing. So a great night from option A and option B for this Wolfpack run game. I mean, did you see what I saw? Was it kind of a tale of 2 halves on the line of scrimmage? I mean, what was NC State's offensive line doing so well in the first half, and why do you think the run game slowed down in the second half from what you saw?
I'm going to say 2 things. One thing, more Bam Knight. I want more Bam Knight. I know carries are hard to come by at NC State because so many hands, so many mouths to feed, but more Bam Knight. Secondly, when it comes to line play, I just think that NC State showed strong in the run. They really handled the run game. They really, that's that thunder training, that big muscle moving guys around. But at the same time, Hugh Freeze is a old former Ole Miss guy. He figured the situation out and put his players in a position to make plays. So that being said, those D linemen for Liberty, when it came to the pass, they had the advantage. I will say NC State is they have run O linemen. They have guys who they do better. They're maulers. They do better job at playing the run than they do necessarily of protecting the quarterback. And Liberty forced them to protect the quarterback. And they struggled. I will say they struggled. Now, some of that is Bailey Hockman too, trying to escape backwards and holding the ball too long. That is on him too. But Liberty did get a decent amount of pressure. I just think that Liberty just didn't have the guys to stop the run game, that they didn't have the game changers on defense to stop the run game. So I believe that up front, State won the run game situation, but I definitely think that Liberty on defense won it when they decided to pass the ball. Especially because those DBs, you give those D linemen an extra second to get there, and makes life a lot easier.
Well, the run game was important on both sides of the ball, offense and defense. I mean, NC State ends up winning the night in the run category, 167 yards to just 107 yards for Liberty. And I think it was even more impressive what NC State was able to do in the run defense category. Liberty comes into this game averaging over 250 yards per game on the ground. In their 2 wins against ACC opponents, against Syracuse and Virginia Tech, they were averaging 290 rushing yards against those 2 teams. I mean, that's absolutely insane. And one really interesting fact that I found this week leading up to the game is that under Coach Hugh Freeze, Liberty was 12-0 when they outrushed their opponent. That just shows you how important that particular statistical category was last night. NC State knew it, and they executed. They were able to run the ball way more effectively than Liberty. So credit to them. And also, I think we gotta shout out Bam Knight. He also got involved in the pass game too. He led the team with 5 receptions, 34 yards receiving. So another 100+ yard all-purpose game for Mr. Bam Knight. And I mean, look,
let me not say more Bam Knight. Every time I say more somebody, I don't get it. So just more Bam Knight, but
that brings me to where we wanted to go with, obviously our beloved guy on this podcast now has become the 6'7" tight end for NC State, Kerry Angeline. He, of course, finishes the night with a couple receptions, was targeted 3 times, 2 receptions for 21 yards. But there was one play in particular, Mike, where we were talking about before the podcast, where I was like, that was really an opportunity that could have gone to Kerry Angeline. It was that 2-point conversion. Credit to Tim Beck. He's done an absolutely phenomenal job this year. Has exceeded all expectations in what he was going to be able to do to this offense in his first season in Raleigh. And his play calling has been fantastic 9 times out of 10 this season. I mean, I've got no qualms with him. But on that 2-point conversion, might have been a matter of getting a little too cute with the screen pass to Icky Kwanyu. Yeah. Icky is a phenomenal blocker. He's a future pro offensive lineman. Don't know about those ball skills. Don't know about the screen pass opportunity there. It didn't look great. He didn't make himself look great on that potential 2-point conversion. And I'm like, look, you got your 6'7" target in the end zone. And you were talking about, even before this podcast, we're talking about the undersized secondary of this Liberty team. We're talking about guys that aren't even 6 foot. You just throw that ball up there and give them a chance. I'm gonna just pass the mic to you, give you your moment to say I told you so about Angeline, like I've been saying about Bam all along. But
Bam's your guy. Kerry Angeline is definitely my guy. I need to get him a sponsorship when he's done playing, because I feel like he's being unfairly mistreated, even though I like Hockman. Hockman need to throw my dog. I just want to say, man, Hockman, I'm telling you a message. If you just throw the ball more than Kerry Angeline, the stats are going to be there. Man, it would have been a great opportunity, for a mismatch and potentially even a linebacker on him. So I just look at it as a missed opportunity. And I get it. Those plays for a defense, when an offensive lineman catches the ball, you're like, oh, he was eligible. You know what I'm saying? Like, they work once in a lifetime. And maybe that was a once in a lifetime situation. But to me, I guess call me old school. I would just throw it to the 6'5", 6'7" guy who catches mostly everything thrown his way, get the 2 points and keep it moving. But, it's life.
Look, I mean, we can the Monday morning quarterbacking doesn't hurt as bad when you come away with the victory. So this is all in good fun here. But again, another potential option was you've got Ricky Person averaging 5.9 yards per carry. You got Bam Knight averaging 6.9 yards per carry. That run defense on Liberty was clearly the weakness and was a potential opportunity to expose it even further. But you know what? NC State comes away with the win. They're 6-3. We can't dwell on that
Winning
too
changes
much.
everything, huh?
It changes everything. And that, more than anything, this game proved what we've known pretty much all year, what this NC State team has done. And they've been incredibly resilient. And they've bounced back from adversity whenever it's been served to him, however it's been served to them. I mean, they were manhandled against Virginia Tech in game 2. They were manhandled against Carolina entering the bye week. And each time they've bounced back and put up really competitive performances in the next games. 4 of their 6 wins this season have now come in games where they have trailed at some point in the second half. That's just, as someone that has followed NC State my entire life, you're a guy that's competed at NC State. You know the culture of NC State. You know the history of NC State football and, and men's basketball for that matter. But it's just that kind of grit is almost kind of uncharacteristic. That resiliency that as an NC State fan, you kind of think, if something bad can happen, it will. And this team has kind of been like the reverse karma of last year and all of that bad mojo in the past necessarily, that more times than not in close games, NC State has figured out a way to get it done. And I think you got to give a lot of credit to the coaching staff, and you got to give a lot of credit to these young men that have come together through all of the adversity of a crazy season played in the middle of a pandemic. You've got your off-season social unrest, and the team just comes together and meshes. I mean, the chemistry has to be at an all-time high. What, as a player, someone that's been in the locker room, someone that's been in their shoes, what does a win like this do for the cohesion of the team? Does it just bring them even more closer together?
Nah, man, it's great for the team. I think that this team they're winning, man, and it's good to win. It's good to win games that necessarily could go either way, regardless if it's Liberty or Clemson. So it's good to win. And, I'll say for this defense, that's a big win. Because you know what? A lot of people, including myself, have been saying, the defense needs to step up. The defense needs to step up. Hey, you stop somebody from scoring less than two touchdowns. That's a game. So, and they can build off that. And I will say this, shout out to those young DBs, because, it took a few games and we went through some bumps and bruises, and we'll go through some more. But that experience is starting to catch up. It's starting to catch up, and these young guys are starting to take control of the reins, and I believe that these guys are coming together in a way that no other NC State team has ever had to, because they're probably spending 10 times more time together than we ever had, because they can't see anybody else.
And that's part of the resiliency of this team, is that NC State has won games in many different ways this year. You look back at the ranked win on the road against Pittsburgh. They won it with Devin Leary's 330-yard, 4-touchdown performance, just airing it out, throwing it all over the field. Hockman did it against Miami and was when what was a really close game, a game that I think NC State, is going to kick themselves looking back and thinking, we really should have won that game. It'd be even more of a special season. Not to say it's already been an incredibly special season for this bunch. But they've also gotten it done, in the Wake Forest game. They pounded the rock. They had over 260 rushing yards in that game. But then for the defense now to step up and win a game like this, and now it's another game where the special teams also can take some credit for stepping up and coming up big with, as you mentioned, the Bailey Hockman pooch punt to pin Liberty inside the 3 there late in the third quarter, or Vi Jones's field goal block at the end of the game to ice the game. That kind of gritty performance, those big plays on defense and special teams, it's just really great to see NC State come up and get a big win like this with those types of plays. I mean, I'm going to go back and do my top plays on Tuesday. I make the GIFs and everything, and typically it's all offense. This week, it might be 4 or 5 of those plays of those top 5 are going to be on defense and special teams. And that's not something we've been able to say throughout this year. So look, NC State's got 2 winnable opportunities in front of them. They're going to have a great bowl opportunity, sometime in December or early January, depending on how these next 2 games goes. It could be a really, big name for a bowl game too, for NC State. I mean, who knows what could happen. But, just to not only to finish out this season, what has been a really special season for NC State, but also building this young defense for next year, which, I mean, look, most of these guys are going to be coming back. They're bringing in new recruits. They're being active in the transfer market. They might be bringing in some, older experienced guys that maybe were standing out at a lower level. And, I think if you
don't need them, man.
Look, all I'm saying, you bring all that together and you bring all the returning talent back and all the confidence that they're building, this could be a very special defense next year. You give them another offseason to build it together, get stronger, put on some good weight, and it's shaping up for this NC State team to be very, very competitive in 2021 when they get back to usual business.
I'm more interested in 2021 with the quarterback competition. I'm very interested because, there's going to be, it's Devin Leary by a mile shot, but out of all of them, who's got the most experience? Right now, it's looking like Bailey Hockman is going to have the most experience. But if Ben Finley progresses and you see the type of guy that a lot of people think they see, what do? Do you hold him back another year? I mean, it's a great problem to have. I'd rather have that problem than, well, if he gets hurt, we're done for.
And not to mention, you're bringing in a 4-star recruit in Aaron McLaughlin, who's coming in the 2021 class. So it's going to be a crowded quarterback room. There is going to be some competition. And as you say, it's a great problem for Dave Doran and Tim Beck to have. Mm-hmm. Look, it's night and day from 2019 to 2020. The biggest question leaving 2019 is NC State tried out 3 different quarterbacks and still didn't have an answer. Could never figure out who was the guy at quarterback. But those growing pains have now blossomed into something that, you could argue that NC State has one of the most competitive quarterback rooms in the conference this year. And going into next year, they may have the most competitive. So the future is bright. But I mean, I guess to just kind of wrap it up with defense and special teams, big game for Isaiah Moore. I don't think his safety is getting enough credit. I think that was the play of the game.
That changed the game.
I mean, at that point, before that happened, when NC State, I think it was the third 3-and-out of the second half, or maybe not a 3-and-out specifically. Maybe they got a couple first downs, but the offense they weren't getting the job done early in the third quarter. And it just looked like that NC State team was losing a little bit of its confidence. Liberty had all the momentum, but that one play just gave juice to the sideline. And from then on, it was going to be a down to the wire game. So, from your experience as a player, I mean, what is a big play like in a safety too? I mean, that's even more in terms of takeaways. A safety just kind of it stings to get tackled in your own end zone.
Because it's demoralizing for a team, because it's like we give up 2 points and that team gets the ball back. So for a defense, you score. Anytime you score on defense, that's a good feeling, because, I mean, you're supposed to stop points, not get points. So it's literally just one of the better feelings in the world. And I think that Isaiah Moore has shown that he's a complete linebacker this year. And he's been a guy that I will say Because I'm a big Aleem McNeil fan, just like you. I'll say Isaiah Moore, Peyton Wilson, and Drake Thomas. That linebacker room has been the best room on this team from the get-go. I think the linebackers have pulled this defense along when other spots weren't playing well. And now at this point in the season, we're starting to see the DBs catch up. The D-line's always been decent, but I think that, they're starting to get better. You got Joseph had a good game, so I definitely think these guys are starting to catch up to the guys that have been playing well from the jump. I think the linebackers have been playing very well. The DBs are catching up, and so is the D line. I swear, if they could all just put it together at the exact same time, which I think the closest you got to that was last night.
And let's hope that it comes back in the bowl game. Whoever it's against, wherever it is played.
This next two, man.
It could be
talking about playing the SEC, opponent, that's always a good look. That'll help you see where you truly are at.
No doubt. And you raise a good point with the linebacker core. Entering the season, we already knew that was going to be the most talented position group on the defense and potentially even on the team as a whole. But it just, at least through the first half of the season, it just never seemed like they clicked necessarily. I mean, there were some good individual performances, but you had Drake Thomas missed the Miami game, and then you had Peyton Wilson miss some time against Virginia Tech, and he was dinged up a little bit in the first half of the season. And Isaiah Moore, had some good games, but also struggled in a few games. He struggled with his tackling in that Carolina game when Carolina was just able to run the ball at ease against that NC State defense. And now with all of those guys back in the rotation and healthy, it just seems like they're clicking now. And then you got that great fourth man and Vi Jones as a great option to, give one of those guys some rest. You throw him in. I mean, he's a former 4-star recruit, a USC transfer. And I mean, he stepped up not just on special teams. I mean, he has 3 kick blocks this season, which is incredible. I think he's one away from tying the school record for kick blocks in a year. But yeah, that linebacker core they're just running around the field. They're making plays. I know Moore had 13 tackles last night, Peyton Wilson with 12, Drake Thomas with a good game as well. So look, if NC State can if they can have a game where the offense is clicking like it has the last 2 games and the defense is clicking like this game, I mean, they're a top 20 bunch. And it's
Easily.
it doesn't even sound right to say that just based on what we thought of this team going into this season. These guys have just grown up so quickly. And again, you got to give credit to these guys for stepping up and doing it. And you got to give credit to the coaching staff for developing them and putting them in the right spot. So a lot to be excited for over these next 2 games. Mike, let's give out our game balls. I'll let you start. As always, you always surprise me, but I think I have a hunch who you're going to give. There's a lot of guys that are deserving of game balls, I will say. So you start us off. Who's your guy?
I'm going to give it to Daniel Joseph. 1.5 sacks. Yeah. I'm going to give it to Daniel Joseph.
Okay.
He played the run decent. I think he was fiery, and as a senior, I think the senior defensive end, he had a great performance. I enjoyed watching it. And I think that you should expect more from him, because it's his last season. I think he should. I mean, he gets next year too, but whatever. He's last year in my opinion. But I definitely think that, he's panned out as a guy. You were talking about a guy who came from a different program. I think he had a solid game. Did he have the best game? Nah, but it'll be my player of the game this week.
Mike, I swear, every time I expect you to zig, you're going to zag on me. I mean, I thought for sure you were going to give it to Bam Knight, just all the credit that you were giving him.
Just to spite you.
Look, and there's a lot of deserving guys. I mean, there's 3 guys in my mind that I think all kind of tie for responsibility for game ball. It's going to be tough to give it to one, but maybe a little position favoritism from you there, Mike, as a defensive end, seeing it from a fellow defensive end. And that's, I'm not discounting Daniel Joseph's game at all. He played one of the best games of his season here at NC State. The 1.5 sacks, as you mentioned, I think he had 2 in the game against Wake Forest. So definitely one of his best performances of the year. Liam McNeil was a freak up there at nose tackle, as he always has been. I'm looking at the early morning PFF stats, and great reason for you to take advantage of that Adidas 75 promo code at thewolfpacker.com. You can check out all of the PFF grades for NC State players, but 91-point performance for Liam McNeil last night. That's got to be his best of the season. And
Yeah, he ain't gonna be here next year.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
2021, it ain't happening. I'm gonna tell you that now.
That might be the one guy that they're gonna miss next year.
I hope
But
they got a good backup.
they do. CJ Clark's been playing well, and they've got some young guys on that D line, so they're gonna be fine. But Aleem has been playing lights out, and it's great to see it because he's a guy that came in as a guy that was a running back and a linebacker in high school, comes into the NC State program. Coach Thunder, builds him up into the 320 pound. I think he's probably closer to 340 pounds if we're being honest now. Force that he is up the middle, and to play a position like nose tackle in a 3-man front, not necessarily the sexiest position. You're not going to get all the big sack numbers. You're not going to get the big tackle numbers, but his role in the run defense is just, it's huge. I mean, it's bigger than anybody else on the team in a 3-man front. So good for him. I'm not going to give him the game ball. I mean, I think I've already given him a game ball this year.
Sounds like you just did.
Look, I'm telling you, there's a lot of guys that are deserving. Vi Jones coming up with the field goal block. That's a big guy. Not going to give him the game ball. I really want to give it to Bam Knight. 2 touchdowns, great performance. I've already given it to him too this year, and he's going to have more opportunities. But the guy that we have not given a game ball out to this year, that I am going to give it to, is Isaiah Moore, the team captain, redshirt junior, middle linebacker. I think he had his best game of the season last night. As I mentioned, 13 total tackles, 4 solos. He had 2 tackles for loss, had a half a sack. But the most important play of that game was the safety late in the third quarter. It changed the game, and that's when his role as a captain, he stepped up as a leader, did it with his actions on the field. And look, without that safety, NC State's not winning that game. So
I could say I give it to Bailey Hockman for his decent punting skills.
Mike, come on now. We're not doing that.
He placed it perfectly.
Look, I don't know who is coaching up these quarterbacks with these pooch punts. Ben Finley did it. He pinned Carolina to the 1-yard line against the Tar Heels, and now Bailey Hockman's getting it done. I mean, it's an effective tool. It's a weapon. I mean, got to start recruiting these quarterbacks that also can get it done with their legs too. But nonetheless,
we just got some ones that could pass and run. We can't look for all that yet.
Yeah, the life of an NC State guy, right? You're 6-3, you're exceeding expectations, everything's going as well as possible, and you're still greedy for more. So, but Mike, I think that was a good one. We gave out our game balls. You give it to Daniel Joseph. I give it to Isaiah Moore. Credit to the defense. Great game by NC State. 2 more to go. Next week, NC State's going to be playing at Syracuse on November 28th. We still don't have a time for that game yet. Hopefully it's on a network that everyone's able to watch. I know some trouble watching RSN with the YouTube TV and everything like that. We at the Wolfpacker found a way to get it done, and I know a lot of guys on the message board did as well. So credit to everyone that stuck it through for all 4 quarters last night. That was a wild one. But let's close this out. Please be sure to rate, subscribe, and review this podcast wherever you listen to us. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, wherever you listen to podcasts. Follow us on social media. You can follow Mike at SavageMike90 on Twitter. You can follow me at Justin H. Will, and be sure to follow our main account at the Wolfpacker. Like us on Facebook, NC State Wolfpack, on thewolfpacker.com. And of course, when you go to thewolfpacker.com, please be sure to use promo code Adidas75 to take advantage of that special deal. 1-year premium subscription for just $75, and you get a free $75 digital gift code to Adidas gear. Get your holiday shopping done ahead of time. Beat the Black Friday crowds. Get it done. Use that promo code, and then you get to follow everything about NC State for the next year. Get some good information there. So, Mike, thank you for joining us. As always, we will see you next weekend For Mike Rose, this is Justin Williams, and this has been the Wolfpacker Podcast.